حي على الفلاح.
They used to sleep but little of the night, and in the hours before dawn, they would ask forgiveness. During the era of the Prophet ﷺ in Ramadan and after the Isha prayer, there was no unified congregation prayer. Muslims had the flexibility to either pray night prayer at home or in the masjid. It was reported in a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to encourage them to stand in prayers in Ramadan without strongly ordering them to do so. He ﷺ said, "Whoever performs Ramadan out of faith in seeking reward from Allah, his previous sins will be forgiven." So the Muslims used to pray Isha, and after that there was no one unified congregation prayer. Some used to go home and pray there. Some would sleep and wake up again to pray at either their home or in the masjid. This practice remained until one night during Ramadan before the death of the Prophet ﷺ. He came out and prayed the night prayer at the masjid. Some companions joined him in that night prayer. And on the following night, he was joined by a fair-sized congregation. On the third night, he looked through his door and found the mosque full of people. Therefore, he did not come out. When asked why, he said that he did not wish that this prayer should become obligatory. This shows how thoughtful of his community the Prophet was. Even in matters of worship, he always wanted what was easier for them. If he were to offer this prayer in the mosque every night throughout Ramadan, people would over the years elevate it to the obligatory or semi-obligatory status. Therefore, he decided to offer it at home to retain its status as voluntary night worship, which we can do at any time. However, it is not true that it was never offered in congregation in the Prophet's mosque until Umar did what he did. In fact, it continued to be offered in congregation, but without regular arrangements. What Umar did was to organize it in a proper way. One night in Ramadan, he came into the mosque and found several groups of worshippers offering the Taraweeh prayer in several congregations. He disliked this because it suggested division within the Muslim community. Therefore, he told them to form one congregation and appointed Ubay ibn Ka'ab to lead the congregation. Ubay was one of the best reciters of the Quran among the Prophet's companions. Umar did not join because as caliph, he led the obligatory prayers. Again, he was keen not to give this prayer any impression of being obligatory. On the following night, he checked what was happening, and when he saw that there was one congregation, he made his comment that it was a fine bid'ah. He was not referring to the Taraweeh prayer itself because the prayer was known to all and practiced by many. He was simply referring to the fact that it was offered in one congregation. So the addition is the organization of the prayer, not adding a new prayer. Today, most people offer it in mosque and congregation. This is not obligatory. Anyone can offer it at home with his family or friends or alone. It is all acceptable. However, in congregation it earns a greater reward. Any prayer offered in congregation is rewarded at 27 times its normal reward when offered alone. In many countries, people prefer to have a long prayer with the whole of the Quran recited in this prayer over the month of Ramadan. This is a great practice, and long may it continue. There might be a misconception among some that Taraweeh prayer was established by Umar ibn Al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. However, it is crucial to clarify that Taraweeh was initiated by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the passing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the initial concern of Taraweeh becoming obligatory no longer existed. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, recognizing this change, gathered the people under one Imam for Taraweeh prayers. This action did not invent the prayer itself, but rather organized the community in congregational worship. From 8 to 20, the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ initially involved praying 8 raka'at during the night prayer, and these were notably long prayers. However, as the length of the 8 raka'at became challenging for some people, a shift occurred towards praying more raka'at with shorter recitations. Contrary to a common modern misconception that 8 raka'at is shorter and easier than 20. Historical evidence suggests that the initial understanding was different. Dawood Ibn Al-Husain heard the Aaraj saying the Imam used to pray Surah al-Baqarah in 8 raka'at. If the Imam spread the recitation over 12 raka'at, people perceived it as a lightening of the prayers. The essence of following the Sunnah is not merely in adhering to a specific number, but more importantly, in replicating the profound length and devotion exemplified by the Prophet ﷺ. It's crucial to understand that the Sunnah is about offering 8 raka'at with substantial length rather than merely completing 8 short raka'at. During the time of Umar Ibn Al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, the number of raka'at increased from 8 to 20, not as an attempt to supersede the Sunnah, but to accommodate the people's needs. This adjustment aimed to make the prayers more manageable by introducing shorter raka'at and intervals between them. The name Taraweeh itself is derived from the rest or break between these prayers, emphasizing the thoughtful consideration given to the worshippers' comfort and convenience. Taraweeh in Mecca and Medina. In the earlier days, the people of Medina and Mecca both observed Taraweeh prayers with 20 raka'at, taking a break after every 4 raka'at. However, a unique tradition emerged in Mecca, where during the breaks, worshippers would perform tawaf around the Kaaba. Seeking to match this special practice, the people of Medina increased the number of raka'at to 36, replacing the 4 times of tawaf with an additional 4 raka'at for each tawaf. Imam Nawawi and other scholars have documented this historical development. Imam al-Shafi'i said, I have seen the people of Medina praying 39 raka'at and people of Mecca 23 raka'at. All these are fine. He also said, if they made the standing longer and raka'at less, this is fine. If they made the raka'at more and the recitation lighter, that is also good, but the first option is more beloved to me. By this time, the common practice across major Islamic cities was to pray 20 raka'at, with the exception of Medina, where they observed 36 raka'at during Taraweeh. In recent times, a noticeable shift has occurred in Taraweeh prayers, with many Muslims worldwide still observing 20 raka'at. However, there was a notable trend where the length of individual raka'at has become incredibly short, often consisting of just one verse of the Quran. Mecca maintained the tradition of 20 raka'at, but with multiple groups praying simultaneously. Some historians even mention 4 separate congregations in Mecca, each facing the Kaaba from a different direction. In Medina, the practice continued with 36 raka'at, occasionally led by multiple imams and groups simultaneously. This persisted until the Saudi government assumed control of Mecca and Medina, unifying the prayers under one imam. The Taraweeh prayers were also standard to 20 raka'at in both holy mosques. Across the Muslim world, many mosques adhere to the tradition of 20 raka'at, while others continue with 8 raka'at. The variations reflect the diversity of practices among different communities. Ibn Taymiyyah said, the best approach varies according to the conditions of the worshippers. If they have the endurance for prolonged standing, then performing 10 raka'at with 3 additional ones, just as the Prophet ﷺ used to pray for himself in Ramadan and at other times, is considered optimal. However, if they find it challenging, then praying 20 raka'at is better. And this aligns with the practice followed by the majority of Muslims. Muslims have historically shown a preference for praying behind imams endowed with beautiful voices and deep concentration in their prayers. The imams of Taraweeh prayers were not only hafidh, those who memorized the Quran, but often distinguished scholars and judges. Renowned figures such as Imam al-Tabari, a great scholar of tafsir, Imam al-Qurtubi, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and other eminent scholars were known for leading Taraweeh prayers. In his book, The History of Baghdad, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi narrates an incident where Ibn Mujahid, upon hearing Imam al-Tabari lead Taraweeh in his mosque in Baghdad, remarked to his student, I didn't even know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would create someone who reads so perfectly. Historian Ibn al-Wardi said, I prayed Taraweeh behind Ibn Taymiyyah and have seen in his recitation such khushu', devotion, and heartfelt emotion that encompasses the hearts. Numerous historians and Muslim travelers who journeyed across the world documented the voices of Taraweeh imams. For instance, Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar, in his book The Hidden Pearls of the Noble People of the 8th century, mentioned Shamsuddin al-Zari Ibn al-Basal al-Murqi and said about him, he was with a very nice voice and many people would come to him to pray behind him during Taraweeh prayers, and they would crowd in his mosque. The history of Taraweeh prayer reflects the devotion of Muslim communities and their commitment to do extra night prayers. As we engage in Taraweeh during the blessed month of Ramadan, let us cherish the rich history and traditions that have shaped this special act of worship. May our prayers be a source of reflection, forgiveness, and spiritual growth, embodying the spirit of unity and devotion that has characterized Taraweeh throughout the centuries.